Hey guys, and welcome to my Draw My Life video. I'm Sethum83. So, why am I making this video? I must be somebody famous, right? Well, not really. Okay, then I'm somebody important. Or I've done something important in my life. I'm afraid that's not it either. And no, I'm not a big YouTuber. So then, who am I? And what qualifies me to make this video? Furthermore, what am I trying to achieve through it? I'm just another person in this big crowd we call the world, with a story to tell. And I simply wish to inspire others through my story not to give up on life, because, you see, I very nearly did. I don't seek to get any subscribers through this video, and nor am I asking for sympathy. All I'm trying to do is give hope to those who struggle to find it or have lost it altogether. For the most part, my life has been quite difficult, you see, or at least it feels that way. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I was born on the 16th of July 1983, and on the internet most people know me as Sethum83, but my real name is Roland. I was born in Brasov, which is a city in Transylvania, and Transylvania is a part of Romania. You may or may not have heard of Transylvania from Bram Stoker's famous book Dracula. In fact, I only live 20 minutes away from the castle. My family consists of my father, my mum, myself, and my little brother. I also have two older stepsisters and an older stepbrother, as this was my father's second marriage. In 1991, we moved to the USA and we lived in Florida for a few years. As at that time I didn't know English, I found it quite lonely, but it was alright because I quickly picked up on it, and within 1 year I made a lot of friends. This also reflected on my school reports, as within 2 years I went to become a straight A student. Within the next 2 years, I continued to be a straight A student, and I picked up reading. Matter of fact, I read so many books that the governor of Florida actually sent me a letter to congratulate me for the amount of reading I was doing. It was around the same time that I got into drawing, as well as into gaming, as around this time I also got my first gaming consoles, and the gaming consoles that I got were a Super Nintendo and a Nintendo Entertainment System. For this short period, my life was great, but boy was it about to change. My dad started drinking shortly after we returned back to Romania. Around this time, I was about 11 years old, and my life was about to become a proper living nightmare. The other children that I went to this new school with split into two camps: those that didn't know what to make of me, and those that found it hilarious that I'd forgotten how to speak Romanian. This all attracted the schoolboys' attention, who wanted money off of me. So with this in mind, I then went to my dad, who in the meantime upgraded from beer to vodka. I told him what had happened in school. I can still remember his words on that day. The first thing he told me was that he didn't care, because somehow I was the reason we came back to Romania, and somehow this was all my fault. The following day in school, the bully obviously returned, expecting his reward. So I did the only thing that I could do at that time, and that was to retaliate, which must have come as a big surprise to all the other kids, because I can tell you now that I've never seen a bully run so fast as on that day. The next day, this guy brought a friend to help him teach me a lesson. Once again, out of options, I defended myself. From this point, the whole situation escalated as he brought in more friends adamant to teach me a lesson, which in turn affected me in school as my grades started to drop, and I stopped doing my homework because of this. With this guy still on my back, I ended up in the situation where I had to defend myself against gangs that he knew. By this point, Dad was drinking more often, and Mom started to join in. I mean, after all, families need to stick together, right? Anyway, from my dad's point of view, everything that was happening was my fault, he started reminding me of it on a daily basis. At this time, I can't say that I had many friends, and drawing became my only escape from my harsh reality. The only person that did see anything good in me was my uncle, who unfortunately was murdered, so my world became that much darker. By the age of 15, I got quite good at defending myself. I guess the word got around because this guy really wanted to crack at me. It turned out that this guy was 28 years old and he'd recently been released from prison. Apparently, this guy had been to prison multiple times for small things such as armed robbery. He attacked me to prove to the world how tough he was. After a brawl, this guy knocked me out, and in my fall, the back of my head hit a sharp object in the concrete, and he left me there for dead in a pool of my own blood. The next thing I remember is waking up face down in a hospital bed with the doctors and nurses trying to stop the bleeding. When Dad came to the rescue, well, he wasn't too happy. You see, he had to take me to a different hospital because where I was currently being treated, they weren't equipped for it. In the second hospital, the doctors were shocked at the state of my head. Of course, Dad needed to remind me how this was all my fault. Around this time in my life, my parents started agreeing that the world would have been a lot better if I hadn't been born. You see, they started drinking quite heavily, and most of the times they argued, and when they weren't arguing, at least they agreed on a few things. I'm not going to read them out, I'm going to let you guys read them. So for the next 10 years of my life, these were the things that my mom and dad would regularly tell me, almost daily. On the days in which my mom and dad weren't drinking together, my dad would invite friends and neighbors over to drink with him, and he loved to tell them how I messed up their lives. When those people would ask how I as a child could have done such a thing, he just went on to tell them that I'm a future convict. Only when he got fed up with my face, he'd tell me to go away. Otherwise, I had to sit and listen. Outside of the house, I still had to defend myself against a lot of people. I mean, a lot. However, by this time, I stopped caring. You see, I started to constantly have nightmares about all sorts of monsters that only wanted to torture me over and over and over again. By this point, drawing, which was the only light in my life, had begun to fade, and I found myself surrounded by darkness. So I started running away from home more and more often. I guess I was trying to find some form of peace, but I never found it. Somehow, at some point, I came across this really potent type of poison, and yes, it was rat poison, and as a result, often I sat and thought about the possibilities of taking it. You see, by this point, I was convinced that the whole world would be a better place without me. And that voice that kept telling me not to take it slowly faded away until I could barely hear it. Eventually, I got a job in a factory where I worked for about a year, and within that year I became very ill because of the environment I was working in. But I did manage to save up some money, with which I bought my very first computer, and on it I learned coding and got back into gaming again. Eventually I got into a university where I started studying management and economics. In my second year of university, I was given a project that I had to complete within a company, so I went and did it at the local town hall. On my first day on the project at the town hall, I noticed a girl that was working alone in a corner, and she seemed to be as sad as I was. Now, I don't know why or what made me do it, but I went and bought her a rose just to put a smile on her face. I guess that I felt that nobody should be in the place I was at that time. We became friends and then turned into really close friends. In my third year of university, I ended up getting a job within a computer shop, and while I enjoyed working with computers a lot at home, things were still bad. Something this time had changed because I absolutely liked to do nice things for this girl just to see her smile. And so this became my small speck of light in a otherwise dark world. For the first time in what seemed like an eternity, this broken person began to feel accepted, which meant a lot to me. You see, up until then, there were very many occasions on which I very nearly took the easy way out. So I started saving up money because, you see, there was finally somebody that cared about me. However, we couldn't have an open relationship. You see, the damage from what my parents had said about me had spread around like wildfire, and, well, nobody saw me for who I was anymore. Instead, I was this dark, dodgy person, wrecker of lives. With the money that I'd saved, I managed to find a job in the UK through a company, after of course having to pass multiple tests to prove that I knew English. So I left Romania determined to succeed. You see, now I finally had something which I never had, and that was hope, because I knew that someone now cared for me. Eventually I arrived in the lovely Windermere where I've lived for the last couple of years. I found a room to rent, got a job, and 1 year later saved up enough money to bring this special girl who accepted me as broken as I was. 5 years later, this girl became my wife, and we lived happily ever after. The end. Well, not quite. You see, while I can't tell what's around the corner, as far as I'm concerned now, I have my own family, which consists of a wife that I love a lot and our crazy but adorable cat. My wife and the sense of belonging have become my reasons to get out of bed every morning and do what I do. I think that we owe it to ourselves to not give up. Now you know why I've chosen to end my videos with the words "stay safe." I'm Sethum 83, and I'm just another person in the crowd. With that being said and done, I'll leave you with these two words until next time.